All right, I'll come back to today's release of the anti-Semitism report by Gillian Segal in a moment. We'll speak with former Labor MP Michael Danby, but plenty of other issues I want to get across now. Joining me to do that, Deputy Executive Director at the Institute of Public Affairs, Daniel Wild, and here with me in Melbourne, broadcaster Carolee Katsimbarnis. Welcome to you both. I want to start with this controversial plan to tax unrealised capital gains, and reports today the Treasurer is seeking to expand his already contentious tax hike without parliamentary approval. Now, this is really interesting in legislative drafting terms because he wants to use a little-known clause known as the Henry VIII clause. Constitutional law expert Greg Craven has unpacked all of this today, says it'll allow the Treasurer to adjust key parts of the plan once he sees how much money it's bringing in. As if the proposal wasn't bad enough, the Treasurer also let slip he's spoken to Paul Keating about the plan.
I don't want to verbal him. I don't want to go into private conversations. I don't think it would surprise any of you or anyone listening to learn that I speak with Paul Keating relatively regularly, not just about this issue, but about a whole range of issues.
Now, Dan, a couple of things here. I hope he is listening to Keating, because we know Keating's an opponent of this tax. He's certainly upset that it's not indexed. But I tell you what, back to the legislation. I mean, building in the legislation ways to broaden the scope of it, the tax, without then going back to the Parliament, that should alarm every taxpayer. And I think it's also alarming in governance terms, given this will end up, I reckon, by stealth, some sort of death tax.
Well, you're exactly right, Peter. I mean, this is an extraordinary power grab, an abuse of power. When we look at the relevant section that we're discussing here, which is section 296.60, which was what Professor Craven was talking about, what's so extraordinary about this, Peter, is it would actually give the Treasurer the ability to make changes to the law based on circumstances pertaining to individuals. So he could change it not just in relation to, broad considerations, but would be able to target it towards individuals, which violates every single principle of the rule of law, which is that the law should be applied fairly and equally to everybody, and also that the law is knowable and transparent to the community. There's simply no way of knowing how these proposed changes to the laws would work because there would be so much power vested in the Treasurer himself to make subjective decisions in regarding to how, exactly as you have said, to increase taxes on Australians without any checks and balances going through Parliament. It really is quite extraordinary, and I think that Australians, and as you say, taxpayers in particular, are right to be alarmed by this.
Let's go to stuff I touched at the top of the show about our sort of deteriorating relationship with the United States. There's reports in the Nine papers suggesting that as part of the Trump administration's review of AUKUS, they're going to demand we pay more than we currently do. Currently, it's $368 billion. That's the price tag for these 3 Virginia-class subs. And that will also provide a guarantee, should they require, this is the US, those subs in any conflict with Taiwan, we would step up to the mark. This prompted James Patterson to call our diplomats in Washington to do their job, he says, and get some clarity around this issue.
We are entitled to try and influence that process, and any country with any diplomatic heft or ability to move quickly would be all over this. We should be able to save AUKUS, but we are not going to save AUKUS if we just let this thing on cruise, if we don't take charge of it, if the Prime Minister doesn't personally take charge of it.
And there was also a call from Bridget McKenzie saying that, Kevin Rudd's really in the hot seat here. He's got to step up himself and fix the relationship or do better in terms of meetings and negotiations, certainly on the Hill. I mean, Carolee, it would be an expectation under ANZUS, so we all know the ANZUS Treaty, that if there was a conflict and the United States was involved, that they would be able to call on us. I don't think you need to amplify it or restate it again for AUKUS. But I tell you what, this relationship's got pretty bad. I think we've got to think about changing out Kevin Rudd, don't we?
Peter, we certainly do, and I'm certainly not backwards in coming forwards with this. I said on November the 5th, when it first came out that Kevin Rudd had not deleted those tweets that he'd done and the texts that he'd done as well. I mean, he's called Trump the village idiot. He's called him the most destructive president in history, and he's also called him a traitor to the West. It's not going to end well. We're 8 months now and there's been no face-to-face interview with Donald Trump. All other meetings have been rescheduled for other countries. The bottom line is Kevin Rudd, despite the history, despite being a Prime Minister of Australia, he's not doing the job that he is there to do. As the Australian ambassador to the United States, we have got problems with our tariffs, we've got problems with copper, now pharmaceuticals, also steel and aluminium. He's not doing his job. And I do have to say, I think that Kevin Rudd would probably react in exactly the same way if someone did the same to him. We know that he's got a huge ego. We know what went on in his administration as well. The bottom line is Kevin Rudd needs to have the integrity and actually step down and say, I've done all I can do. But here's a novel thing I'm going to leave you with. Kevin Rudd's always been very proud that he speaks fluent Chinese Mandarin. Trump speaks a lot to Xi Jinping. So how about Rudd starts using those contacts, reaching out to Xi Jinping, and maybe Xi Jinping is the one that can get Albanese an interview with Trump face to face? Because it's actually got to that. I mean, it's absolutely evident that we're being frozen out. And also, I think Albanese has to have a very serious think. We cannot have a foot in both camps. In the Indo-Pacific region, with the relationship with China and the message that it is sending out to the Trump administration. It's loud and clear. 8 months on, no meeting. This is ridiculous. Rudd should resign. And if he doesn't resign, he needs to be removed by the Albanese government. It is stupid.
I tell you what, Kiralee, I also think too the optics of us heading off to Beijing. This is the second time you've had an official visit by our Prime Minister to Beijing. They've had 4 meetings, but we've gone there twice. Xi has not come to Australia under the current Prime Minister's watch. So we look like the supplicant here, don't we, Dan? Because this is not just a fly-by-night trip tacked on to another visit in sort of summit season. This is 6 days, all singing, all dancing, 3 capital cities. And all the time, of course, we've got this continuing watch on China pushing around the region and this expectation of conflict in Taiwan in and around 2027. This is not going to help us in Washington either.
Well, it's certainly not. And I think the issue here is a couple of things. One is you've got a government that's not serious about international affairs. It would rather play petty domestic politics and to make decisions based on personalities than what's in our national interest. I agree with the Prime Minister when he says that, decisions on our national security should be made by Australia and not another country. But there is no serious person that would think that Australia would have the capacity to defend ourselves in the event that we would need to do so. The reality is we are not prepared for conflict in our region, and we need to have a strong alliance with the United States. Yes, that alliance is founded on our shared values and our cultural similarities, but the United States also needs to be able to get something out of that alliance, and that will mean increasing our defence spending, spending that money on more effective matters, but also engaging in a more serious way and understanding, exactly as you said, sometime later in this decade, there is every chance that the Chinese Communist Party will seek to, if not actually, intervene in Taiwan, and in which case, it's going to be a guns-up kinetic warfare, and we need to be ready for that.
And all around the same time, we in Australia are looking at the defence budget saying we're not doing what the rest of the world is doing. We're 2% behind where NATO got to a couple of weeks ago. The US are looking at us saying lift your game. Well, our Defence Department's putting out a taxpayer-funded defence cookbook as if this is somehow going to save us. Now, I thought this was a joke initially, but Air Marshal Leon Phillips is on the record saying he believes in the incredible power of food. I don't know about that. I'm much more interested in the power of missiles and frigates and F-35s. I mean, really and truly, this is not a home ec class. Kiralee, this is crazy.
It's ridiculous. I mean, at least Peter Dutton had the guts to actually say you need to get rid of this complete woke agenda with the ADF. We know that Richard Marles has also said that they're going to be getting rid of, 25 to 40 starred generals as well. This is ridiculous. And the cost of it. Aren't they meant to be working on domestic missiles, our production of domestic missiles? I don't know how long it takes an egg to boil, but I tell you what, it's probably, they've got to get on and do these missiles.
It's nuts. I'll leave it there. I'll move on. Thank you both for your time.